I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Rutherford County Public Safety Committee meeting for September. Good to see each and every one of you here. We'll begin the meeting with approval of the minutes, and with the approval of this, we'll do a roll call vote. Do I have a motion on that? Mr. Vice Chairman, Birds of Gammon.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Shanto Sereno. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Here.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yeah.
Commissioner Rather? Commissioner Gammon?
Here.
Chairman Reed?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we get into the regular business of the meeting tonight, I'm going to turn the program over to the mayor. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without objection, I'd like for you to suspend the rules, and I'd like to come forward for presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
So move. All second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's indeed a pleasure on this occasion to take just a moment for a recognition ceremony. As chairman of the Correctional Work Center, it's my pleasure to lead that board, and I'm not sure the board members even know this because we were trying to keep it quiet. But we have some guests here with us tonight. I'd like to call on the TCI, Tennessee Correctional Institute Director, William Wong, escorted by his Deputy Director, Bob Bass, and we have Derek Keaton and Michael Donahue, both detention facility specialists. I believe there was a ceremony that was supposed to take place. Gentlemen, y'all come on up also. And like to ask Director Mr. Cope, if you would please start making your way up this direction, and I'm going to turn this over to the Director Hall. Director Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. My name is William Wong, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Corrections Institute. As the Mayor mentioned, joining me tonight is Deputy Director Bob Bass, along with Detention Facility Specialist Michael Donahue and Derek Keaton. We'd personally like to thank Sheriff Fitzhugh for his leadership as a member of the TCI Board of Control, and Mayor Ketron for recognizing outstanding leadership statewide, as well as in Rutherford County. Each year, TCI and the TCI Board of Control present the Jail Administrator of the Year Award. By the look on Bill's face, who I consider a very dear friend of mine, he is a bit surprised. But we present this award to candidates whom have exhibited excellence within the local correctional environment, and Superintendent Bill Cope has displayed excellence over the numerous years with the core concepts of accountability, rehabilitation, reentry, and public safety at the top of his agency's mission. The Rutherford County Correctional Work Center is a nationally recognized facility with cutting-edge programs. One of the things I can tell you about Bill is he's always willing to help. He has gone all over this state with TCI, specifically with Deputy Director Bass, and helped implement programs in small, rural, and distressed communities. Those are some of the unsung things that Superintendent Cope has done, unbeknownst to many of the people sitting in this room. This is only possible through the leadership of Superintendent Cope. So I am pleased to award the Tennessee Corrections Institute Jail Administrator of the Year Award to a man I consider a leader, a mentor, and a friend, Superintendent William Bill Cope. Congratulations, sir.
I know a bunch of liars. Will, I appreciate this. Bob, Derek, Mike, Mayor, my team out there. I will say this, not to take away or minimize the gravity or the severity and importance of this award, because it truly is it's a once-in-a-career award. But I'd just like to say that a good leader or administrator is nothing without a even better team. So I'd like to ask my guys to step up here for just a second, if you would, just to recognize them. I've been doing this for way too many years now, close to going on 30 in this line of work throughout different facilities, and I can say without a doubt that I've got the best team that I've ever worked with. Captain Smitty there, who's been my right hand for several years. Lieutenant London, who, when you talk about dedication to the county, Tommy London has driven from Clarksville to Murfreesboro every day for 25 years. Every day. And we've worked together for most of those days. Sergeant Duggan there, I mean, I don't even have enough words. We've known each other since we were in Cub Scouts together, but the only way that we were able to obtain a 100% score in our last ACA accreditation was because of Chad. That bottom line. Didn't have anything to do with me, didn't have anything to do with anybody else, Chad Duggan. And Sergeant O'Cleary came all the way from Hawaii just to be here and be the best best training coordinator that we've ever had. So I appreciate my team, and when I say team, I mean everybody from these guys to our board members, our chairman. Mayor expects excellence. He has a vision that most people don't even understand and can't comprehend when it comes to corrections. And he expects us to excel, and we are more than glad to do that. So we appreciate you, Mayor, all that you do for us, our board. These guys, Mike, Derek, Bob and I have been up and down the roads way too many times. Will and I have raised some of our kids together. My oldest one is 24, and my youngest one's 15, so there's a little, or 5. I say 15, he acts like he's 15, but he's 5, so there's a little bit of gap there, but he's watching probably at home, so hi, Shuggy. So I just want to tell you guys appreciate it, and I appreciate you all as commissioners who have faith in us to do what we do, and you know, we work together as a team with all the other agencies, Sheriff's Office, Probation and Parole, EMTs, Juvenile, Paul's, who Michael saved me from a rabid dog not long ago that bit me out in our parking lot. We all work together. I think we work together seamlessly and do the best that we can for this county, and it's all for and I know this is a subject that has been tossed around, but it's all for public safety. So I appreciate you all, and thank you very much. Or alive. Is that the report? I think
You know, a man that accomplished what he accomplished and the size of his heart and whatever, the only thing that kept him from being up there to get that award was a little bitty virus called COVID. And that's the only reason he wasn't there to receive that at the time. So congratulations, sir, for a job well done. We appreciate you. We will now move on to our other reports. Recovery Court. Hello.
I'd like to start tonight by saying, just as a reminder, that September is Recovery Month and also Suicide Prevention Month. So both of those are very important and close to my heart, and I just want to make sure that I make mention of that. I also want to thank Commissioner Serino for coming to Recovery Fest. He may not have realized that I saw him walking around, but I did. And I just want to say thank you for the support in that, as our county really worked hard to provide a safe place for people in recovery from mental health and substance abuse to come and commune together. As you will see in my report, we had 10 individuals that completed our program successfully in the month of August, with one who self-terminated. We also had 9 that were accepted into the program. That's on page 4. Of the people who were referred that did not come through, one of those says it was transferred to another problem-solving court. I want to explain that when we get a referral on someone and they apply for drug court, if they are not qualified for drug court but would make it in DUI court or mental health court, we automatically transfer them over. We want to do the best that we can to ensure that clients that are seeking help get it. So if we can do that through an avenue that's other than what they applied for, we want to make sure to do that. We currently have 122 people who are signed up or who have applied for our program that are in a waiting status. So we're just waiting either for them to go to court or for them to be assessed or for the district attorney to sign off. We continue to have classes in our office. We continue to utilize safe spacing and require testing for any clients that come in or say that they have any symptoms that may be COVID. And then I want to make an announcement for our mental health court. We are in the process of developing and starting a moderate track. All of the recovery court programs run off risk need, so your risk of re-offending, and then also the need of services. Traditionally, most of those are high-risk, high-need courts. DUI court is the exception. But what we have seen is that there are people that have mental illness in our community that would not otherwise qualify for assistance through our program, and we want to make sure that those individuals also can get help and get guidance and get connected to the resources. So we've started that up and have our first 3 clients coming into that program. So just another way that we're trying to serve the community. And that is my report.
Okay, any questions anyone may have?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Have a second. Commissioner Phillips. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Report is approved. Thank you. Probation report.
Hello. So this is the first month that I'm presenting the new format with our report with some additional details. So I'm going to go over it a little bit more thoroughly than I probably will moving forward. The first section that you're going to see is the terminated case totals. For the most part, most of the cases that probation supervise, they are supervised until court-ordered conditions are met. So this first section here is going to separate those out by the number of people and the number of cases that were terminated throughout just the month of August. So you can see the total number of terminated cases for the month of August was 175. So that was 148 cases or individuals that their cases were closed out. The number of reasons as far as why their case would be closed would be that they would be paying directly to the clerk. You can see that there were 47 people that will now pay whatever costs or dues that they have directly to the clerk's office. That varies from all conditions being completed, those that failed to enter a payment agreement, those that were revoked by a judge. That would mean that probation was offered to that individual and probation wasn't successful for them a number of times, and then the court decided that that person's probation would be revoked. So that covers the terminated cases and individualized as far as the reason as to why that case was terminated. And then active reporting cases. Right now, probation currently supervises 912 individuals on probation. The middle section are our class details. As you know, we offer a plethora of classes within our department. ranging from domestic violence, parenting classes, and those are all individually listed there too. As far as the participants go, we had 59 participants for all of those classes, and we had 22 in the month of August that completed those classes successfully. And for the month of August, we did not have any discharged unsuccessfully out of those classes. Then we also have our Olive Branch, which is our outreach program that we have. We have a clothing and a food pantry. We have a really nice location for that in our new building. It's actually specific for that. Maintenance built some clothing racks and some shelving for our food. So that right there will list out the assistance that we offered. So for the month of August, there were 7 individuals that were homeless that we helped. You can see we just kind of broke that down. Those that are just recently released out of incarceration or maybe just going through a hardship, that is usually going to be in that right-hand column. But for the month of August, all the individuals that we served were actually homeless. The bottom section is the financial section that I usually give on the monthly report. For the total number, or for the revenue total for the month of August was $15,936.01. With the expenditures amount and the difference in that equaled $96,708.20. To the right, we have our payment agreements. We turned over $7,271 to the clerk's office to be collected for probation fees. And then in red, we had the $5,351 in probation fees that those that failed to enter a payment agreement with the clerks. So far this fiscal year, $13,146.95 was turned over to the clerk's office to be collected for payment agreements. And so far this fiscal year, 14,637 individuals did not enter a payment agreement with the clerk's office. And then the last thing would be the number of indigent cases that we supervise. That would be that the court has deemed them indigent. So the total of that is 58. This month I also attached a couple of things just because I wanted to switch gears and get away, or at least try to give you a better understanding of what probation actually does. There are a couple emails, and I hope you guys take the time to read them. I redacted the information as far as to know where it came from or who they might be talking about. But there's one individual on this second sheet that is, thank you for helping me through this worst time of my life. They're also talking about, that their salary has increased, that within the next year they'll be out of government assisted housing. So those are things that are wins for us. We don't get to hear those things all the time. Unfortunately, sometimes you hear the bad and you don't always hear the good. So I wanted to share that with you guys tonight. So that would be my report for the month of August.
Okay, any questions on the report anyone may have? Noticed you had a note that had come in there that's very impressed with.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
It's very good.
Yep.
Anyone else? Anyone has a
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
motion made to approve? Commissioner Phillips. Second, Commissioner P. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report approved. Thank you. Correctional Work Center.
Welcome. Lynn Duke just threatened me that if I spend any more time talking that she would break my leg, so I'm going to make this as brief as possible.
I don't know who we're going to call up here to break your leg. I'm sorry.
She's sitting right there. If you'll take a look inside that packet, you'll see our September board meeting. And then after that, we have our, there was a little note, I won't go into it, too much, but we get occasionally get these notes from family members just thanking us for whatever we're doing for their family members who are incarcerated with us. In this case, we did quite a bit for this guy and put him in work release, and he was able to help his family out and keep their house from going into foreclosure, and quite a bit of got him quite a bit of rehabilitative programming while he was there, and that was his parents had written us that nice little note there. Work release report for 2021-22 for that month of August. As you can see in there, no significant changes. Yearly activity report, not a whole lot of change. Our population's starting to go up a little bit, which is good for us. It allows us to put more people out to work, which you'll see on the next monthly worker report. And then on the last sheet there, for the month of August 2021, total trash collected on county, state, and interstates are as follows. County roads, county trash, 5,240 pounds collected, and then state routes, that was 778 bags collected. And that is my report.
Questions on the report?
Motion to approve the report.
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sereno. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Quick question. Are you talking about your work release program? Are you actively looking for other places that you can place people?
Yes, sir. We're always looking. Right now, because our population is a little bit lower, we don't have any extra bodies to put in those positions, but we're always looking.
Well, I've got an idea. Give me a call when you...
Okay, good.
Anything else? Okay, sir. Thank you. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
Juvenile detention. Good evening.
Good evening. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up after Bill tonight. All I can say is that when I grow up, I want to be just like him. You have in front of you your August report, and I don't know that there's anything particularly of interest. We are all caught up on our billing, and our STDs are up a little bit, but beyond that, I will happily answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, it's good to see all zeros down there.
Yeah.
Any questions, gentlemen? A motion to accept. Commissioner Gammon, do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Phillips, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety. Public Safety Director. You have a report, and I think you have a Hazmat training.
Yes, sir.
Request.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, Mayor. You have your monthly report in front of you. I'd like to point out that I'd like to continue to think about the people in Waverly during their flood. They have a long way to recover. Our personnel were able to provide aid during that time of event. In that event, Carrie was down there for 2 or 3 days, assisting them in establishing a donation center, which became overran very quickly, and so she was able to help go organize that as they received donations. A lot of the state of Tennessee kind of showed out as far as bringing in donations and willing to help their fellow family in the time of need, and it was definitely destruction during that event. We were also able, like to commend our Rutherford County Sheriff's Department that also sent aid to Waverly along with Murfreesboro. They sent their command post and some people to assist in the donation center as well. SO was able to provide security for the city of Waverly. We've also provided quite a bit of training for several different entities. And switching gears to our 911 dispatch, I'd like to bring to your attention and elevate the increase in call volume that we've had in the last month, and I think that you'll hear that through the EMS and fire reports as well. But in our communications center, the difference in 1 month, we received 696 911 calls, additional calls that we did from July to August, and then this increase occurred in August to September. That's an additional 911 calls. Call handling, we increased it 1,788. A difference in 1 month, 1,788 additional call handling. And then last but not least, the calls for service was increased by 1,140. So we've seen a steady increase in call volume. With that, we had some flooding to occur this last month, and I think we did one water rescue through the fire department, and Murfreesboro did assist them. We had several road closures with the help of OIT and our partners. We were able to show that on a map and try to let the public know to stay away from those areas. We will continue that flood map, and I'm reaching out for partners to hopefully have accurate data so we can get this out to the public and get them turned around before they ever venture out. Again, October the 1st, we're going to start our vaccinations once again at State Farm. With the help of the mayor, we're able to establish inside COVID vaccination spot there at State Farm. The mayor's helped us out greatly in talking to the folks at State Farm and the property owners, and we were very gracious to receive that inside. We've worked on flow as far as patients and also traffic plans, and we've reached out to Smyrna, Laverne, Murfreesboro to assist us in electronic signs and cones for the traffic flow. And then our OIT is helping inside with internet service. So there's been a lot of stuff going on this month that I'd like to point out. We have great partners. Without our Sheriff's Department, our fire, EMS, our city entities, they've all come together to fight this. We will continue that battle. Please stay, give a word to our nurses and our teachers that continue to work through COVID-19. Our numbers are starting to see a little bit of decrease, but we're still pretty heavy in COVID-19. So that's my report.
You have the report. Any questions?
An increase in calls. You went through those. What are you attributing those to?
Well, I'd like to say COVID, but it's not. I think that that's a small percentage in COVID calls. Increase in population. Maybe it's a time of year, but we have definitely seen an increase in this last month, and it's significant. Yes, sir.
I would just like to comment on Commissioner Phillips' question. On the way in, I was listening on the radio. 3 calls within a mile of my house. There's only 1 ambulance. That means that it was coming from somewhere else. One of those ambulances was rerouted twice because you've got to prioritize. You know, heart attacks take priority over nausea and vomiting and so on. At least a couple of ambulances were being pulled out of Murfreesboro into the north end. None of that was COVID that I know of. It didn't appear to be. Everything I heard was wrecks, heart attacks, and just, you know, the day-to-day things that there's more of. And I passed 2 of those incidents on the way out just to the interstate, getting out to the interstate. So it's definitely increasing. Part of those were in the city limits of Smyrna. I have a fire station right above me, so I know every time they respond out, they go right by my house most of the time. My wife had just told me, said, you might not want to go that way because the fire truck just went down Morton, and sure enough, but I didn't listen. But yeah, it's increasing. It's just a lot more people. So, and I think that's true of all the populated areas of the county. So I don't know what we're going to do about it, but we're going to have to really look at it hard.
COVID-19 is a small percentage of call volume that we're doing right now. I think that the EMS director can testify to that. It's everything else plus that. We've had, and the EMS director can also speak that we have great hospital partners that's turning these ambulances quick as they can. We don't have the situation such as occurred in Memphis where our ambulances are sitting a couple hours with the patient on the stretcher. We have great hospital partners. We've been working with them with disaster plans. We've been working with several entities with on disaster plans during this month, but we've seen a huge increase in call volume.
Commissioner P., did you have a question?
The only thing I would suggest is you might have had a little more call volume for water problems with all the rain we've been having. I don't know if that's the case.
Well, you know, it really, during that event, we didn't have, as far as the fire, EMS, and emergency management, we didn't have a lot of calls during that water. We had that one water rescue. You know, it's everything else from heart attacks to car wrecks. One of our biggest call volumes, and I think these guys will testify, is car wrecks. We have a lot of car wrecks with injuries.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Motion made to accept the report. Have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gurley, all in favor, say aye. All opposed. Report is approved. I believe you have something else, don't you?
Yes, I have Carrie Clark to introduce to request to apply to a Hazmat training grant.
Good evening. That's loud. We're requesting permission to apply for the Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant. This grant is a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's a class that we'd like to have for mainly our firefighters and EMA personnel that will consist of EOC operations, air monitoring, chemical identification, as well as a tabletop exercise and a full-scale exercise, and those are all requirements for other grants that we get anyway. The grant is a matching grant, of course. It's 80-20. The total grant project would be $17,850. The county proportion would be 20%, so it'd be $3,570, and the feds will pick up $14,280.
I will move to approve, but I'd like to comment before moving on for a second. This grant, while applicable to Hazmat, the principles learned in coordinating activities within the exercises and training within this grant can apply to almost any scenario. So the opportunity to be able to fund without doing it out of pocket entirely, a tabletop exercise involving multiple agencies and so on response is probably not going to happen otherwise, and this is a great opportunity, and I'll shut up and let someone second it.
Okay, we have the motion to have a second. Have a second, Commissioner Phillips.
Is the grant cash only or is in kind, office space or anything like that available?
This one is cash only.
Okay. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley, Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
That's it.
Before you leave, I wanted to tell you thank you for your time spent in Waverly and representing the county there. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to go. So,
Thank you. Ambulance report. Make a budget request first.
If that's okay.
That's okay.
Good evening. Earlier this year, one of our administrative vehicles was totaled in an accident, and we didn't receive quite enough money from the insurance to replace the vehicle and the emergency equipment. So we are requesting to transfer $15,260 out of our assigned fund balance, and with the insurance check for $25,482, we would like to take $5,260 to transfer a total of $30,742 into our motor vehicles line item, and the additional $10,000 from the assigned fund balance into the 735 health equipment line.
Motion to approve.
Have the motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
What is our deductible on these ambulances?
Deductible on the ambulances? I'm not sure. We can find out.
I was thinking that like the sheriff's vehicles, I think it's almost 50,000. So I would assume it's pretty high.
We can find out. 25,000? Okay, 25,000.
Other questions? If not, Madam Secretary, we will call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Director.
Okay. I'm going to do mine before Denise jumps off in hers. It's for the month of August. We had 3,652 emergency calls, 81 hospital transfers. We had a total of 3,733 calls. Response time is around 7.1. Had 104 deaths. State payments we received on those investigations was $2,600. We sent 36 for an autopsy, totaled to $70,560. Year to date on the number of autopsies is 61, and we've paid out $119,560. We've billed $1,691,831. We've collected $795,972. Year-to-date collections are at $1,665,611. Projected yearly collections is at $9,993,666. Our collection percentage rate's at 67%. The insurance write-off at $511,102, and other write-offs are at $317,329. And I want to run back up real quick, up towards the top, to our total number of calls. You see 3,733. The month before, we ran 3,391, which is 342 more calls. And the month before that, in June, we ran a total of 3,247, which is a 496 call volume. And to answer your question, Commissioner, the bottom line is growth. It's not the nature of the calls. The calls are all the same. As far as the natures, it's just a whole lot more of it. And we do have some COVID-related calls, but that's not a problem. So I thought those numbers were pretty interesting. As of January, we've already ran 31,000 calls. Last year, we ran a total of 39,000 calls. So we're going to surpass what we did last year. And it's growth. Any way you look at it, I've looked under it, around it, beside it, and on top and under the bottom. It's growth. Okay. On the non-emergency side, we did a total of 507 calls. Total bill was $385,436. Total collections is at $137,954. Year to date, collections are at $253,127. Projected collections are at $1,518,762. Collection rates at 68%. Insurance write-off is $183,774. And on the next page, before I get into that, as you know, we have gone to another billing company, and I believe October the 15th, is that correct, Melanie? We go live with that, and it's going to take a little bit to do the transition and all that, but I really, really believe we're going to see some improvements in our collections. Like I said, my goal is in the next 2 years to be a little bit less dependent on the county for their supplement for the ambulance service, and I'm hoping by $2 million. Okay, Melanie wrote a nice thank you letter to one of the girls in the office. I'd really encourage you to read that. It was really nice, and she did a really good deed. And on the next 2 pages, you can see the before and after treatments of some of our paramedics who were working on 2 different patients that was basically having a heart attack, and you can see the before and after. But it was their early treatment that made the success of this. So we got a lot of talented people working for us. And that's my report, sir. Denise is going to come up and give a presentation and some valuable information I think will be good for everybody. So do you want to approve this report first or after she?
Well, hers will be a part of the report too,
Okay,
so we'll make all of that in one motion. Let me say what you have heard with Chris's report, the numbers he's done there, and then we've also heard from Commissioner Gurley talking about those ambulance calls and what we've had there and the numbers. Carl and myself were on a late night talk show last night. And all of you that go to bed early, you probably didn't hear us. But some of this we got into as far as growth, as far as what is involved in a lot of these things. And it's just interesting that it seems like every committee I move from and where I go from each day and everything that's discussed, that seems to pop up. And when you talk to the citizens out there, the same thing happens. And this morning in planning, our chairman was sitting up here, and we got into that too. And the things that started popping up all of a sudden up here was dealing with noise, the noise complaints we get, and what are we going to do with codes as far as noise is concerned? What are we going to do as far as people wanting to do more with their property? Can we handle those things? And how are we going to do that? And exactly what are we going to do with all the people as far as the properties are concerned out here? And the chairman, and I told him I've already used it once today, and he made a statement, and I think it was just quite good. And he said, it's about as good as it's going to get as far as growth is concerned. And you know, that sort of relates to what we're seeing as we continue to go this way. I come in tonight, and Mayor, I've got to tell you, I was pretty hot to what I've seen and what I'm getting calls on right now. And I think you got involved in this Friday, but I don't know how many of you have been to our mission station out here on Salem. That's been backed up today, out all the way to 99, all the way to the light and going down to the Church of Christ. That far. And I had a really good speech on that right there, and I wanted to say that, okay, the federal government and the states decided we're going to do away with that emission station, but they're not going to do it to January. And when you tell employees that you're not going to have a job in January, what do? They go look for another job. I don't blame them. Today, they had 1 bay and 2 employees working. And they did that Friday. We have a county with almost 350,000 people in it. And Mayor, I had a little resolution written out here today that I said I think we give the mayor the empowerment to contact the state and the federal government. Said, okay, if you cannot operate this, as we give you $9 a car, and you're operating from this, we give the mayor the power to pull the plug on this thing, and we move on. Because this is not fair to the citizens of this county. This is not right for the safety of those individuals that's sitting out there on the side of that road. Because I saw some pretty dangerous situations out there and what they're having to deal with, and you're talking about a 2 to 2.5 to 3 hour wait for them to do that due to the fact they just don't have employees to do it. And we're going to have to deal with this. I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox now. If we're going to deal with this for 3 more months, I'm afraid we got a problem. If they can't send somebody down here to operate it in the proper way and ask us to pay $9 for these people out there, we're not getting our money's worth, Mayor.
Well, I got there at 2 minutes after 7 on Friday to renew my tag and then get through the line until 10 after 8, 2 people in 1 bay. So if you'll send a resolution, I'll send it.
I just think, this is a public safety committee, and I think we address this thing because
I had to park on 99 before I could turn it.
See, we don't own that building, I don't believe.
No,
we
sir.
don't operate the people. We don't do any of that. All we do is get $1 from the 9. That's all we get, and that's for the paperwork and the handling of that. That's operated by someone else, and they are not fulfilling their contract. So if we're not going to have that done, why do we put that upon the citizens of Rutherford County?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be good to request our legal department an opinion on this, because it could cost us dearly if we don't investigate it legally. What are the ramifications? What could be done to Rutherford County in terms of retribution if we were to end this unilaterally?
Well, I wasn't going to write the resolution. I was going to make sure that he did it, so he'd have to investigate it before he writes the resolution.
Well,
That's up to this committee though, but
I'm all for it. I was through there the other day, not very many days ago, and saw the same thing. I thought, why in the world is this backed up almost down to Old Fort? And now you're telling me the reason.
I'm telling you the reason, and if somebody will make the motion, we send this over to legal to investigate what our obligations are for the county to continue.
I move that we send to legal to get an opinion on closing emission testing as soon as possible.
We have a second. Commissioner Phillips, any more discussion?
Should we send this to our legislative delegation instead?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do that too. They'll be involved because they are the ones that helped us get it this far.
I mean, we were able to stop doing this because of COVID for several months. So I don't think it's a revenue thing. It's definitely not a revenue thing for Rutherford County. I personally think going to the state delegation would be the direction to go.
What they've done, they got our wagon in the middle of the creek and unhitched the team and left us in the wagons, what they've done.
Also, Mr. Chairman, there's there's 4 businesses on the cul-de-sac that all have signs in front, do not block our entrance, and people don't read, or they're reading their phone or text or everything else, and they'll pull right up bumper to bumper, and they can't back up and they can't pull forward, and so the people can't get into their locations.
We'll send it to legal. We'll also contact our legislative delegation. That's the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we'll move forward. And we'll try to get this sucker out of the creek. All right. I believe we have Denise that's going to give you some information. You know, so many times we pass, we allow grants to be written, and we see things that come before this body. And we're going to give you an opportunity now to see some of the results of what those grants are. Denise?
Well, actually, some of the discussion that I'm going to present to you is sort of an inadvertent use of those funds, but something that's very important to pass on. And in full transparency, we just wanted to show you what those grant funds bought and have built, but also, like I said, sort of an unexpected use of the facility. So, to give you a little bit of background about what's prompting the presentation tonight, we had a request from St. Thomas Rutherford Hospital on September 13th. That request came from their safety officer and also from their head of security in regard to their hospital morgue exceeding capacity. As I believe you're all aware, St. Thomas Rutherford Hospital have graciously and kindly allowed the county to use their facility for county storage purposes in regards to morgue facility. They've done this for as long as I can remember, and they continue to want to help us with that process. But unfortunately, they did reach storage, exceeded storage capacity within this last couple of weeks. So they made a call out to us to request our assistance, and that was to find alternative storage for county cases. In other words, those deaths that are pronounced outside of the medical facility, those deaths that pronounced at home, when families can't make a decision or are not ready with the decision as to which funeral home they wish their loved one to go to. So we take them to St. Thomas Rutherford Morgue with that agreement that's been in place. So we activated the medical examiner room that we have talked about on several occasions here, and that's what the grant funds provided for. The intent for that exam room was that we are able to do medical examinations and toxicology pulls when the case does not reach the threshold for autopsy. We did have some excess funds for equipment, because the actual build-out came up a little less than the quote had originally asked for, so we transferred those funds for further equipment with the thought that we might need additional storage if we did, come across a situation where we are at now. So those funds were approved to buy some extra temporary storage or portable coolers for such a purpose. And we also brought in some additional remains when we knew that the family, we couldn't actually find family, so we knew that there was a potential that we would have those remains with us longer. And given the issue that St. Thomas Rutherford were having, we moved those there too. So we actually brought in 3 decedents' remains into the storage facility. So hopefully you can see in the photos above, this is essentially the remodel of the section of our EMS station that was remodeled under the grant fund. So you can see here that we have a bay door which enables our ambulances to pull up and safely, securely, and respectfully unload decedents' remains, and then also a funeral home is able to pull actually within the actual room there. So again, out of respect for the decedent and out of respect for the public, it's done in a secure and conservative facility. As you can see over the other side, perhaps, we do have an area to put our supplies in, so that if we ever are called out to a disaster response, we have kits ready to go. You'll see that there is a pedestrian door next to that bay door that does have security on the outside of it. So again, it's a secure facility, only EMS can access it, those with card readers that are authorized to go in there. You'll also see another door to the other side that goes back into the office area. Again, that has a security card reader on it. So again, this whole area is secure. This picture is taken from where that other pedestrian door was next to the bay, and that is the double doors that actually go into the exam room proper. So once you're in the exam room, going in through those double doors, if you look to the right, we have an exam station that's set up. That is exactly identical to the exam stations that the National Forensic Center have. So we are able to, again, safely and respectfully examine bodies if we need to, or if the medical examiner can, rather. We have a battery-operated lift so that the remains can be safely moved within this room, and that enables me to be able to do that by myself if I need to. If you look to the left side of the room, you'll see that we have 3 portable coolers there. Originally, the grant funds, we made a request to 1 cooler that would hold 3 persons' decedents' remains. Like I said, we were able to purchase a couple more just in the event that we needed additional storage. So we do have the capabilities to hold. The setup we have here is for 10. So these 2 larger coolers will hold 4. The third one, we can put an extra shelf in there, but we left it just in case we had a larger size decedent. Just added security, each of those coolers lock as well individually, so that if we do have remains in the facility, those portable coolers actually lock as well. So there's an additional level of security there too. As you know, we do have a refrigerated trailer that is outfitted with shelving. That is really only for use in an absolute emergency. Obviously, as you can imagine, this is not intended for a long-term storage, just for the fact that obviously we want to be as respectful as possible to our community members and their families. So I think this was obviously a very wise investment. We've seen these trailers be deployed throughout the state over the last 18 months during a pandemic. They are recommended for use for a mass disaster situation, but obviously in the situation we were under with the exceeding capacity at St. Thomas Rutherford, we wanted a more conservative and respectful set up for the temporary storage that we were needing to do. Some of you may be aware that we do have a indigent cremation program here in Rutherford County that enables those families that aren't able to afford a final disposition arrangement for their loved ones, or if we have unclaimed remains. So we do have a safe that we have at the medical examiner's facility as well, that we are able to contain those in. We are looking forward to making some future plans for a more permanent memorial for those remains, but they are there with us. But just to sort of push home, I guess, I think we do need to future plan how we are going to handle decedent remains in this county. Like I said, we are very fortunate that St. Thomas Rutherford have allowed us access to the hospital morgue. But I think this past couple of weeks has shown us that we need a better solution, I think, in the future, just because of the growth of this county. You know, the capabilities of a very, very busy hospital. We certainly don't want to burden them with those cases that weren't pronounced in their facility. And as you can see, the where we are set up with the medical examiner room, I think it's a good solution for what we needed for our medical examiner. It's a good solution for you know, a practice facility for our medical examiner investigators to work within alongside the medical examiner, but it's not intended to be a county morgue. You know, it is an older building. It's not set up for public access. It's really not set up for funeral home access either. It's certainly, you know, worked in a good way over this last couple of weeks, but I don't think we should rely on that going forward. We certainly need a more permanent solution. And just to recap, just you know, the numbers are continuing to go up. They certainly don't lie. I can't squint at that too much, so I will look at my paper when we go over this. But as you can see from the screen, 2020 deaths in Rutherford County numbered 3,070. The projected deaths for this year are going to probably exceed 3,300. 2020 deaths reported and investigated by Rutherford County EMS and Medical Examiner's Office last year was 926. The projected number to be reported and investigated this year are likely to exceed 1,115. The current capacity of the St. Thomas Rutherford Hospital morgue is around 10. And that's, you know, that's really the sort of the maximum number that they can hold comfortably. The current capacity of Stonecrest Medical Center's morgue is around 3. So just to leave you some points to ponder, hospital morgues throughout the state have reported record numbers of decedents being stored within their hospital morgues. Funeral homes are reporting that they are close to capacity in regard to storage. Families are requiring more time to make arrangements. There could be funding issues just for lack of work over this last year and a half. They may have other family members hospitalized or families experiencing multiple deaths. So it is affecting the length of time that storage is needed, both at the hospital and at the funeral homes. We have no doubt that the pandemic has had an effect. However, Rutherford County's population is continuing to grow, and there's no slowdown in sight. And truly, a mass fatality event would completely cripple the mortuary facilities we have in our county. So, I would just hope that you'll see that I think we've had the grant funds were money well spent for the intent that they were used for, but they've also enabled us to respectfully and securely handle when the capacity at St. Thomas Rutherford did get exceeded. So, thank you.
All right. There was a reason for presenting this. We were going to give it to you at another time, all the commissioners. We just think that you need to be aware of these numbers. We think you need to be aware of what's happening here in this county, especially you as public safety. You need to know what is being done, and these situations have arrived. We got this number on that Monday night about, what do we do, where do we go from here? And just so happened on those coolers that were involved in what we have out here on the Salem Road, we ended up with more coolers than what we actually had planned on due to the fact of the efficiency of those who had developed that lab for us out there of saving us some money where we could put more into coolers and rather than the building. So it really come at a good time for us to do that. These numbers continue to go up, and what we're having to do there, you never know within these pandemics what we've got, where we're going. If any of you have ever driven in any of our cemeteries right now, you see where we are, and it's just normal deaths that we're having is adding to our numbers. And this is another situation of growth within this county. Mr. Gurley?
I was wondering if we could if Denise could send us, the Public Safety Committee, if not all the commissioners, that presentation, email it to us.
We have that. We have it on computer. We were going to send it to you.
That or share drive, either one.
Yeah, we have those numbers. Any other questions? Or?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I just want to stress that not to focus on COVID for this. If you take COVID out of it, today is where we're going to be at in 2 years or less, just because of the growth of the county. If COVID wasn't here, then we would be where we're at today in 2 years. Numbers. So we're starting to, now's a good time for us to start coming up with a solid plan.
Mr.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Hudgens, for the committee's knowledge, just last week we were too shy of being at capacity. Are we not? We're pretty close to having to activate our cooler trailers.
We were. We're doing everything possible, honestly, to keep from using the trailers.
Right, but, and hope and pray it never happens, but if we were to have an incident similar to what Memphis had last week.
That's what we would have to do.
Someone were just to walk in a grocery store and start shooting, then we would have to activate those coolers.
Yes, sir.
And there are other cities within Tennessee that are using trailers right now.
Yeah, and I know it's a topic that nobody wants to talk about, and nobody's ever talked about it, but it's reality, and that's what this committee is responsible for, to make sure that we are prepared in the event that it does happen. Because the press would not be kind if we weren't prepared.
They wouldn't be kind, and this county is better than that, and that's why I'm pushing so
Correct.
hard for this.
Anything else? Not, I'll take a motion to approve the report. Commissioner Gammon, second?
Second.
Mr. Serino. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Report's approved. Thank you. All right, fire. Evening.
Evening.
Good to see you back.
It's good to be back. For the month of August, I believe it is, yeah, I'm getting my months mixed up. We had 2 structure fires, 9 vehicle fires. We had 328 medical calls. We had 67 MVAs. 2 of those were extrications involved, for a total of 602 calls. This time last year, our call volume is about 490 a month. So ours has gone up about 100 calls per month. For the year to date, we've had 53 structure fires, 51 vehicle fires, 2,265 medical calls, and a total of 448 MVAs year to date. 14 of those were extrications, for a yearly total of 4,474 calls. For the volunteers, we had, Allenville had 325 calls, Kittrell had 261 calls, and most of those calls in Kittrell were on John Bragg Highway, MBAs. Lascassas had 162 calls, and Christian had 315. Eagleville had 92 calls. Total call volume for structure fires was 86, 82 brush fires, 85 vehicle fires. We had 21 water rescues, which is what Chris mentioned a while ago on Elam Road. We've had a total of 891 MVAs. 20 of those were extrications. Mutual aid is, let's see, was 191, which is helping each other out. Total call volume, 5,649 calls. And then you see the training hours out there to the right. The only structure fire we had that would need to be turned into Codes Department was on Big Springs Road, August 13th. The Division of Fire Prevention and Fire Marshal's Office, we've had, shows the investigation of when is the incinerator on the Big Springs Road incident. And I think that I actually emailed every one of y'all an article about the our fire investigators got a conviction on the Valentine's Day 2020 arson case fire on it was on Woodbury Highway, and so I pulled some data from them, and since we've started the fire investigators division, our fire investigators have had 14 total arrests, 6 citations in lieu of arrest. We've had 17 convictions, and they got 5 cases pending in the court right now. So that's just in a short period of time we've had the fire investigators. So and that's under the direction of Josh Sanders, our assistant chief and fire marshal. So I think they've done a tremendous job with that.
Larry, quick question. Rutherford County, most people don't know, is probably leading the state in the number of arson fires. At least last statistics I looked, they were. And I was just wondering if that's lowered any since we started this.
Well, we've got more convictions.
Definitely got that. Yeah,
we got more convictions, and when every fire is investigated, and we got 3 total investigators, spent a lot of time training and getting it, working with those cases. We actually had in Walter Hill last week, we had a gentleman pull up in a Dollar General store, and he had gasoline in his car. He threw gasoline all inside of his car, then lit himself on fire. And so we responded to that. And of course, our fire investigators are investigating that, and Rutherford County Sheriff's Office CID is also assisting in that. So, yeah, but I mean, it seems like, well, our county is growing, so it seems like there are more arson fires. But our guys are doing a real good job of solving those cases and getting convictions. And that's one of the leading causes of insurance premiums going up, and just one of the worst man-made destruction things we have. So I'm really proud of those guys. Smoke alarms have kind of slowed down. We did 7 for the last month. And then the last page you'll see is a is the illegal burns that we deal with. And that concludes my report.
Any questions? Not. Do we have a motion to approve the report?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve is made. And a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thing on the radio systems. Not. We'll move down to the sheriff's
I'll
office.
make one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
I don't know if Chris is still here or not. He might have left.
He's outside, I
Okay,
believe.
well, he reported to me today. It's okay, Steve. Our CAD-to-CAD, advanced CAD-to-CAD, appears to be working between the sheriff's primary PSAP, Keith, and my, it is working between the city of Murfreesboro and our CAD-to-CAD. It was about a $7,000 investment. So when it goes into 911, then both the city and the county gets the call at the same time, and that was one of the complaints last year, that there was a delay between the two PSAPs. So I think we are going in the right direction, and it appears to be working.
Okay. All right. Sheriff's report. Good evening.
If it's okay, I'd like to do the grants and the budget amendments first.
Okay.
And then the sheriff will come up and answer any questions
All right.
on the report.
You might want to pull that mic down a bit.
Is
There
the
you-
125 the top on the iPad?
Yes, it is.
Okay. This is a little, last year y'all gave us approval to apply for the LEL grant in $50,000, okay? THSO this year has now decided to do one amount of money. So during this process, the $50,000 went to $125,000, which we have the $125,000. That's why I have a budget amendment. So it wasn't something like we could come back. We were going to drop one, and then they said, well, look, it's all one check. So since you're going to drop your liaison position, y'all apply for the 50 and the 75, and they gave us the 125,000. So now I need for the mayor to be able to sign on this, and y'all accept it. It's no match, and it's going right into our traffic enforcement for overtime, and we're buying driver license scanners for that high visibility traffic enforcement. But it still has to go through each committee at this point.
That's our first one on our thing, the 125,000
Right.
requested increase with all the breakdown there.
It's the salary line items, and then the 6,000 would buy the traffic light or the driver license scanners for that enforcement.
Move to accept the grant and approve the budget amendment.
All right, we have the budget. You'll find it on your iPad, 125,000. Do we have the second? Any question? All those in favor? We'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Next will be, this is something we get every year also, and that's to recognize revenue and expenses for the Teen Driver Safety Grant for the year 2022 in the amount of $15,000. That also is broken down into salary line items and equipment.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
But grant application for the coronavirus emergency supplemental funding, we literally got this Thursday of last week, I believe, Mary, you sent it to us. We want to apply for $75,000, and that will go right into air purification systems. That's for our towers, that's for our pods, that's for the whole entire work areas at the SO. And we will have some mobile units that we can move from different places. And the $75,000 is the max you can get, and we're going to apply for all of it, no matching.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Carino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Sheriff?
Okay, I wanted to give you an update on our COVID statistics. So far in the department-wide, this is our employees, we've tested 604. We've had 175 positive in our employee body. Presently, as of today, I've got 6 employees out, 4 of which are what I'd call severe. 3 of those are in the hospital. 1 came out of the hospital, but she'd been in the hospital second time, so this was the second time, so having quite a bit of problem there. We have had a high of 34 employees out at one time, but we've seen our numbers in the last week and a half start coming back down. The inmate population, presently today I had 23 inmates with COVID positive. Total current since January of this past year, we've had 234 inmates tested positive. This is out of a 4,492 tests that we've had in the inmate population. We still, on intake, we're isolating individuals when they come into our facility to try to control the spread. So our medical staff has done a fantastic job in keeping up with this. They're working very closely with the health department. So that's where we are with that. In reviewing where we are as far as on the budget for this year, I don't see anything. We are spending the money. A lot of our expenditure right now is in overtime. Obviously, we are short of people, and we're about 21 days behind, but in detention, open positions, I've got 29 right now. In addition to, I've got 6 out with either FMLA, military, so we are hurting right now. We brought 4 in this past week, and we had more interviews set up today and this week. So we are getting some applicants for those positions. We have had 2 in patrol, 7 SROs, but the SRO positions, some of those are being released from patrol, and so they're now releasing those, and we'll be down to 2, if I'm not mistaken, on the SRO positions short right now. So that's kind of where we are right now. Due to the number of people we've had out, plus the COVID cases that we had, we've been working overtime. Our staff has stepped up and helping us tremendously in this area. That's my report.
One quick question on gasoline. It looks like we've spent 2/3 of our budget in a 3-month period of time. We're going to be okay on that, or you're going to have to make some adjustments?
Is that right, Preble? I have to look at it, Commissioner, and see on that particular one. Got it.
What you see there is spent. But we have a lot of that encumbered.
Encumbered is what it is.
So we have to have these open POs without getting authorization. So
that's why it is. Yeah.
At least 70,000 is probably encumbered.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the report.
Move to approve.
Second. Commissioner Gammon, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Report is approved. Ready for pause, report, and a grant request.
Good evening. For the month of August, we had 595 animals come into the shelter. You can see at the bottom our live release rate for our dogs was 92.7%, cats was 93%, and overall a 91.5% when wildlife were included in that. We had 179 animals that went through our surgery program and 57 cats that were released through our TNR program. We had around 1,900 people visit the shelter and around 1,900 calls and voicemails for the month, and the officers completed 1,601 calls, traveling 12,285 miles. Fiscal year to date, you can see our live release rate was 91.6%. Our officers have completed the 3,445 calls, traveling 24,895 miles. For our rabies exposure and bite report, if you'll recall, this goes by calendar year, not fiscal year. For the month of August, we had 24 bites reported. 3 of those were sent for testing, none came back positive, and we had 9 other exposures reported. 1 of those were tested and came back negative as well. The last page of the report is just the graph that I give you every month so that you can visually see our live release rate versus our euthanasia rate and our other outcomes. And that's my report, sir.
Questions on the report?
Motion to approve the report.
Motion to approve, Commissioner P.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Report is approved. I believe you have a grant request?
Yes, sir. I'd spoken with the mayor last week. There was a couple of items that had been pulled out of our budget during the budget process. One was to redo some flooring in our kennel areas. It has some pretty severe cracks in it, and we're getting some water down in there. And then also to go ahead and preemptively replace our water heater. The mayor and I spoke. Both of those projects, I think, added up to around $40,000. And we had discussed possibly using the Gov 21 money for that.
That is correct.
Yes, sir. So asking for your approval to take that through the committee process.
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, I discussed this with Michael, and I think we're using the same flooring quotation or company out of Smyrna that the Sheriff's Department used. Titan, I believe, is what they used in the kitchen. Seemed to have a lot of success with that product on the floor. It takes a lot of abuse. It's an epoxy kind of flooring. There's no creases for them to squirt the water underneath the tile, so it's pretty level. So, and that was something we cut out of his budget, and the need for a new hot water heater. He got both of those requested, so it's my recommendation, Mr. Chairman. We'll send it on to the Budget Committee if approved here tonight.
Okay, you've heard the request for the grant?
That'll come out of the Gov 21 money, the grant money, so it's there.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved, Commissioner P.
Second.
Had the second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
OSHA. Evening, sir.
Thank you.
So for the month of August 2021, you'll see the total number of instances is 18. Accident frequency calendar year to date is 111. Your OSHA log summary, total recordables 79, restricted day claims 38, lost days claims 19, other recordables 22. When you look at the next graph and you see on-the-job injury claims, I'll remind you of a couple of things when you compare this year to last year. Schools were out for several months last year, and then also we've added a school this year, so you have additional hours worked. So for the year to date for 2021, you see 111 compared to 104 last year. As you move to the next slide and you see on-the-job injury incurred dollars, you have 407 for 2021 compared to 438 last year. And then on the last page, you see the cause of injuries. Board of Education had 10, County General had 7, Highway had 1, And the breakdown for County General, you had Sheriff had 5, Paul's had 1, Health Department had 1, for a total of 7. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Approved. Commissioner P., you have a second.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Down to item 10, which is on your agenda as premium pay discussion. This relates back to, I think, a discussion that we had at last month's meeting. And I think I was looking here through the minutes what it related to. And you had requested that we go forward. I think Commissioner P. had requested that Ms. Stevenson do a study through HR dealing with a pay plan and some of the things of area around us and how their comparisons are. I think, gentlemen, you have had information passed out to you. You should have that on your desk there in front of you. So I believe we'll move forward with this. We'll move forward with Ms. Stevenson, if you'll come forward, and we'll go into that discussion. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So at this body's request, I was asked to compile some information as it relates to who was considered public safety, who was considered essential, several different items. And so what I did is literally I searched for all of those different things. Some people think public safety is just fire, ambulance, and corrections and sheriff's office and those type things, but it would be hard to not include the other individuals who represent public safety in my mind. The sheriff's office, for example, does have patrol, but they also have the jail. I would not want to exclude anyone in the jail, you know, from this survey analysis. So if you do that, then I don't think that you could exclude Correctional Work Center and juvenile detention. Then I think about those individuals who are out in the field. The sheriff's office are out patrolling, but then you've also got animal control that's out patrolling as well. So what I did to try to give you food for thought, and based upon what I've also read in the grant, ultimately, unless I'm mistaken, the mayor can decide which of these plans he chooses or who he determines essential, but also I think this body has a role in that as well. So I took the data, and I didn't want to bring you all these big spreadsheets because that would be too much. I've outlined them, what was included in each grouping and what the cost would be. So there's a pre-tax cost and there's a post-tax cost. I thought instead of saying, you know, gross and net, it would be easier for everybody to know pre and post. So the first section I excluded the constitutional officers. They're on their own grid, but I would, in my mind, I would think, you know, from the commission standpoint, the constitutional officers, that might be not somebody who was included in the public safety grouping. The other is the directors and department heads, because I've heard many times as I come up to present things that the intent is for those individuals who are boots on the ground. And not that all of our directors and department heads are not boots on the ground, but a lot of times those individuals will say, I want to make sure my people get taken care of. And so I tried to analyze this where it could be included and added back in, but if we're taking care of our employees, I know if you were asking me, and I think that I could speak for the department heads that are in here and the constitutional officers that are in here, they would say, yes, I want my people taken care of. The next section was EMS, the Sheriff's Office and Fire, field only. So this would be the individuals who are literally out in the field. It is your patrol officers, your judicial services, your firefighters. It's those individuals who were included. The next section is those departments and all their employees. So that would encompass their administrative type positions. It would encompass, for the sheriff's office, it would be like their records clerks, their warrants clerks, those individuals who see the public but are not out in the public, for lack of a better way to say it. The next one is public safety in the field, and again, that's all the departments who report to this body. So when I was looking at it, I was thinking, you know, if they report to public safety, to me, that's part of the public safety grouping. So everybody who reports to the public safety committee is in that grouping, but it's the individuals who are actually out in the field. I know that's kind of, it doesn't mean that the detention officers would still be, in my mind, considered in the field. Even though they're in the building, they're in the field. They're dealing with the public in that manner. Then the next one is the public safety all. So that's everybody that reports to this committee, all of their employees. And the one thing that I think is important to note, though, if you only consider the public safety, you're not considering the health department. The health department's the ones giving all the testing. I know they have assistance from the ambulance service, and the sheriff's office has been out there assisting, EMA has been assisting. But if you just do the public safety group, then you're excluding public health, who are entrenched with it every day. Then you would be excluding the other departments, such as building maintenance. The custodians, and I know most people don't think about it, they're the ones that were sanitizing the desk. They were bringing the misters around, cleaning the solid waste. Whenever everything was shut down, that would exclude all those convenience center attendants. Everybody who was quarantined or off for 2 weeks or a month was bringing all their stuff out to the centers. So it excludes a lot of different people when we only think public safety or public health.
Excuse me. Are we talking strictly about bonus pay right now?
Yes, premium pay.
Premium pay.
Premium pay, that's all
We're
I'm
not talking about pay plan right now.
No, sir, we're talking about premium pay. So then we went into the essential. Essential, the way it's written under the governor's executive order and also the grant, it basically says essential government functions means provides all services by the political subdivisions of the state and agencies of government to ensure continuing operation of the government agencies. That's similar to what it says in the grant as well. So if it's anybody who provides a service to our citizens, those are considered essential. So I created a structure to look at the time frame from when we had our first COVID case, which was March of 2020, until the mask mandate was lifted by the mayor in September of 2020. So any of those employees who would have been working during that time when we were being quarantined in the first cases up until the mask mandate would be somebody who would have been included in this analysis, and that's where the dollars come from. It was also calculated several different ways, and again, that can be adjusted, but for sake of this, it was $2,000 for full-time employees who were in the field, the groups that are considered in the field, $1,500 for those individuals who are full-time who were maybe administrative in nature, $1,000 for the individuals who are part-time in the field as public safety. So if you had your part-time firefighters, part-time medics, part-time detention officers, whatever, and then $500 for those individuals who were also support. So when you use those calculations, it gives the total dollars for each of those groupings on what it would cost to fund the premium pay for that group of people. And I tried to narrow it down to a page because I thought it would be easier. Anybody who wants to see the entire, and that's this packet, it's the one that actually says totals by category, date range is onset. It's a 2-pager. There was some items to consider, and this is something that you would have to look at to consider as well. And not picking on the school patrol, they do a lot for our schools, but when the school shut down in March, when the school shut down in March, The school patrol people went home. Now, they're included in this grouping, but they would have not been working, and they did receive full pay because during that time that was what was recommended. And so they were not, you might not want to include them in this pay source, but you may. I did not exclude them. I'm just saying that's a thought to consider.
I have another question.
Okay.
Why did you put EMA sort and not just EMA? Because I know it's a very small department, but they were doing the brunt of coordinating in the field. I don't know how many, during the 4 years I was there, how many incidents I responded to, but it was well on up into the hundreds just in 4 years. So if that's not a field response, I don't know what is.
Okay, I don't disagree with you, but that's not what y'all asked me to do. Y'all asked me to break it out by ambulance, sheriff's office, and fire, and so I did. EMA, I included all of EMA's employees in the public safety one and the essential one, but that's what you asked, and so when I just did the EMS, ambulance, and fire, it excluded several departments that are part of public safety. And I'm not making a recommendation one way or another. I'm just giving you information that you asked for.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe, Sonia, you stated what the American Rescue Plan states, that the mayor, it was surprised to me, but it says that the mayor has the ability to set who is essential. Is that correct? Outside of the body?
Yes, sir.
It's the mayor's discretion. And I stated in the meeting last week that I think every employee is essential. Now, it would be up to this committee. If I declare that all employees are essential, then it would be up to the committee as to how much this committee wants to set. There's no sense in arguing about it, and that if I just declare everybody's essential, then you all just decide how much to give. Now, how much to give full-time, how much to give part-time. Now, you may want to get into, for those who went home and operated from home, do they get the same amount? And then also that period of time, if they were hired from the start date to the finish date of the days that you gave, is it, if somebody comes halfway through and starts employment, is it prorated? So like in Teb's office, Teb said he sent people home and they rotated. So sometimes they were facing the general public for a week and then they would rotate and somebody else come back. So do you prorate that as well for those who spent time? But I think those people, you know, they were on the front line. They were taking taxes. You know, that's essential in the way I look at it. We can't operate unless they bring the money into Teb's office. You know, same thing with our courts. Same thing with bringing garbage to the convenience centers. They were just as essential. So I'm deeming that everyone is essential. Now it's just up to this committee to decide how much you want to give them.
As far as who went home and stuff, I really don't know who went home. So if that's something that the body wanted me to determine, obviously I'd have to ask all of the departments to help me with that because I wouldn't know who went home. One of the things that was put in here is it was prorated. So we put in every employee's in the whole county's hire date, and then we put in the date range. And so because it would not be fair for somebody who's been here, you know, the whole time for, 10, 20 years for somebody who's been here 2 weeks to get the same amount of money during that time frame. So it was prorated based on their time during that window from March to September period.
So I think determining the amount, how much you want to give, and is that going to be net or is that going to be gross? Because if it's gross, then, or if it's going to be net, then you can just about double because bonuses are taxed at, what, 60%?
Well, this is not, because it's premium pay, it's not taxed at that same rate.
So the internal revenue won't However,
it's a lower
by the
rate.
time you figure in, if it's 2,000, and we want that person to walk away with 2,000 net, then it's going to be about $3,800 or 4,000 that this committee will have to make the recommendation to the budget committee of how much we're going to appropriate. And I believe Lisa had those numbers.
I've got the numbers if you want to know how much it would be for each one, because the difference when you look at the pay and the net, because it's not considered bonus for that 60%, it is a lot lower tax rate. So I want to, if you'll give me, can I have just a second to go get, if you want that number?
Yeah, get those, because Commissioner Gammon wants to say something.
I was just going to say, I don't know if I'm on the right track or not, but we're the Public Safety Committee. And the only thing I'm saying is we're trying to make a recommendation on public safety level.
Yeah, but I just wanted you to know that I was deeming all employees essential, so that will eliminate the argument about who's going to get it.
Okay.
You know, if I'm doing all departments across the board, everyone's essential because the virus is a virus and everybody came in contact with it.
Well, I'm just saying it's a catch-all, but I'm saying
Yes,
there's
sir.
other committees that other employees answer to. That's all I was saying. So you're correct. I'm just saying it.
Commissioner Gammon, if you'll remember at our last meeting, I think that was on a Monday, and I think on Tuesday was a meeting we had with the comptroller. And I think I invited all this committee to attend that meeting that was over at North Boulevard. And at that meeting, that's when it was said that the one that makes the determination of who receives and who doesn't is the mayor of the county or the city, and that's where that determination come from. And it's within this copy too. It's in here too. It's in premium pay where it says that. But now, what was you?
So with taxes for the $1,000, it's $1,077, $2,000 $23.56, $500 is $538, and $1,500 $1,767. So it's not as high as the 60% that it would be for a bonus, but this is not considered a bonus. That's why they put it in as premium pay. And I just gave some groupings. Obviously, if you wanted that changed, well, if it's all essential, but if you know, one of the things that we looked at was the individuals who were, I'll just use my department as an easy one. The sheriff's office, patrol, our corrections facilities, those individuals who are out facing it, front facing it, to me, I had people come in my office, but nowhere near what our ambulance service, our fire, all of those individuals experienced. And that was where, it was thought that it might be a good idea for those individuals to get more money than, and that may not be favorable with everybody, but my thought was those individuals that were facing it every day, our health department employees, those individuals got the higher amount, but you may decide that you just want to say $2,000 for full-time and $1,000 for part-time, and it's just based on how long they're here. I
think we're kind of trying to mix two things together. I think this premium pay we need to look at completely separate than the pay scales for our public safety departments. I think we're talking about two different issues. To me, and I went to the comptroller's meeting, and it was very specific that the mayors of the county do decide who, correct wording, but the mayor does have the right to decide there. Now, we can decide, well, it's not going to be the amount that may be requested, so we still have that request, but he decides who would receive the premium pay.
Well, I think the mayor has decided that. He has the authority to decide that. So that's the reason I asked some time back, are we talking only about premium pay, not the pay plan, because that's a whole nother discussion that hopefully we will get into tonight as a public safety committee. But My thought would be that full-time people should get at least $2,000 to make it significant, a dent. I had a paramedic tell me Friday night at the ball game, he said, due to the increased cost of insurance, I'm actually netting less than I netted last year. And whether that's true or not, but that's what he was seeing, that he was going to net less. And so I think in order to keep people and everything, I think on the bonus or the premium pay thing, let's just go 2,000 for full-time and 1,000 for part-time and get on with it.
Well, if we do that, what is the total cost if we figured all employees? You have that total, say 2,000 net. 2,000 would be the full amount that the county pays out. And 1,000.
The school board gave 1,000. They've already given their the school board has already given their premium pay. They gave 1,000, and I think they ended up netting a little more than 500.
Okay, so if we give 2,000 for our full-time, 1,000 for our part-time, and that's the total amount that the county would put in, they would net, depending on their pay scale, they may net something significantly lower than 2,000.
That's correct.
But that being the case, what would be the total cost, or do you have that?
Well, based on the way, I'm trying to look to see real quick. The total cost with taxes in would be $2.3 million. Now, when I look back through our assessments, not knowing, I'm trying to guess what you might want to present, I would have to go back and change. Those individuals in the field were at the $2,000 mark. It was the ones that were in the offices, you know, the accounts, maybe the accounts payable people at, you know, ambulance service or TEBS employees that you mentioned.
Yeah,
and so
I just found it, I find it hard to say, you know, okay, they're in the office and they're at their desk, but how many times do patrol officers come in and talk to the people at the desk? I mean, all it takes is one time to get infected. You know,
I just don't have it calculated with everybody. I think when I did calculate it, and I'm going from memory here, so don't hold me to it, I think it was like $2.8 million if everybody did the 2,000 and the 1,000. I know we had calculated that once before, and thought that I had it with me, but I don't.
Well, we have so many people that were walking around didn't even know they were infected, and they were carrying it. You know, it was just, I think we need to step up and take care of
It
those.
was $2.8 million.
2.8?
Yes, sir. It was $2.8 million.
Is that net?
This one. I think this was pre-tax, so that wouldn't have been, it would be more, it'd probably be 3.2 with taxes. Because at the time we didn't have that calculation.
The only question I've got about the employees, and even where you've got people that are home for a week and back in for a week, they're doing what they were directed to do, you know, during that time period, and they definitely were coming in contact, you know, with the public. But if someone, say, we're talking what, April to June, or what's the actual span
It's
of time?
March to, let me see, it's on the list here. Did I put the
Our
dates?
first case was the second week of March.
March 13th, 2020 to September 22nd, 2020 is the date range.
What I'm getting at is if we hired somebody, say, April 30th, I think that it should be prorated for the amount of time that they were there. If we say $2,000 for the people that were full-time employed or part-time employed during that time frame, they'd get the full amount. But if they weren't hired on, say, a quarter of it or half of it, then I think we should prorate it from that.
And that's how we did it.
Okay.
So that number is based upon that. That's how we did it. It's based on their hire date and the time range of that we were going to consider COVID time.
Mr. Mayor, could you refresh our memories as to where, if the cost was 2.8, where that money would come from?
Where the money would come from? I'm sure either we're going to have to take it out in ending fund balance or we wait until next June. The money, now, let's just talk realities, because the first tranche of money that we're getting from this, we're getting 64 million. Okay, I'll recap that for you. We're getting 64. Half of that is 25.5 is what this body authorized me to make a commitment to buy the State Farm building. Okay, out of the 32 million, which we're only getting half of that, of the 64, we already have that. Okay. If we buy it, there's probably going to be a couple of $1 million on top of that just for moving the PSAPs, rearranging on the inside, buying furniture, fixtures, F&E, et cetera, for that period of time. There could be enough to squeeze out of that. If not, then we're going to have to wait until June. Now, I've got a meeting set up, which I was going to brief you tonight. I kind of gave them an ultimatum with JDM Properties out in Phoenix about buying the State Farm property. I said October 1, we need to know something. We've committed since the end of June to go ahead and purchase that. State Farm has given their letter of intent for $24,500,000 as well. So combined with State Farm's to buy themselves out of their lease and our 25.5, that's combined for $50 million. So I got a hold of Mr. Schmidt, John Schmidt, who is one of the 3 owners of JDM Properties in Phoenix. He requested, when I talked to him on the phone last Friday, if he could fly in here and sit down and talk with us. And I'll invite you, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner P. as well, to sit down and talk with him. I'm not sure what he wants. I'm not sure if he wants to lease it to us, but I'm not interested in doing that. If we can't come to some terms, then we're just going to back up. And then we'll take our $25.5 million and we'll go ahead and start executing in construction of the 6 public health and safety buildings, and we'll move forward. Will be my recommendation to you at that point in time. That's kind of where we are in a 2-week time span by the time he gets in here on the 8th.
I was asked the same question. I gave the same answer you just did. So, I mean, we're talking undesignated fund balance or wait until this grant money is available.
Yes, sir.
Can we repay ourselves back?
No, we can't. I looked at doing that on a bond anticipation note, and this is our grant anticipation note. The comptroller can't. I wanted to be able to borrow against what we're getting. We know we're already going to get the second tranche of money that comes in June, and the comptroller said we can't borrow against ourselves, so that kind of knocked that out. I wanted to go ahead and give it now if we could have done that, but it's not possible.
Well, that's something I wanted to say myself, and I'm glad you brought it up. That actually was the plan, and I had talked to our finance director, and we were going to do a bond anticipation note to ourselves.
Yes, sir.
To pay for this premium pay and then get reimbursed. Of course, when you read the fine print, or actually after they changed the fine print and sent it back to us again, you cannot do that.
I'm at the point, again, that, Katie barred the door. I agree exactly with your conclusion with the State Farm building. If they start dragging their feet, let's move on, 100%. We looked at it, we thought about it, it's an unbelievable deal, but at the same time, this is, to me, very important that we move forward this year, before the end of the year, that if it comes out in fund balance, let's get this thing done, one way or another. Either with the state farm, the money left over from that, or without it. But we got to do something. Just to pay the employees, you know, do it. It's still a good bonus after Christmas, but it's a sweeter bonus before Christmas.
Well, I think we'll know within the next few weeks what direction we can go, and hopefully it's before Christmas.
One other thing I'll mention, and just so y'all know, we've been shaking the tree on this. One of the other suggestions made, and this was by Commissioner Johnson, and I like the way he's thinking here. I think, Sonia, right now we have a longevity pay of, what is it, 25 a year?
25 per year. Mm-hmm.
And he used to work for the state, and of course that bonus was paid out right before Christmas. And he suggested, well, let's look at, instead of 25, let's make it 50. You know, I haven't got actual numbers on that, but see, there's another alternative. Since we're going to look at all of our employees anyway, you know, there's another way to do the same thing, except this would be a reoccurring, and I think that might be something we could, you know, maybe easier to do this year if we don't get the grant money available. You know, if the State Farm building does not come to fulfillment, you know, there's a possibility there.
Okay, we've heard several options. What?
Would it be advisable, we've got information now, and we're talking about trying to get something out maybe in December. Still got probably another month in October to deal with this. Would it be advisable to wait and see what happens with the State Farm building and then make a decision this time next month as what to do before the end of the year?
Yes, sir. I think next month would be, are you talking about the 14th meeting, 2 weeks? I'm not sure we'll be able to pull it together, but I think by the November meeting, we'll have a really good idea.
If we, I like that thinking, if we were not to go forward with the State Farm building, that's a question yet to be determined, then you mentioned going ahead with the 6 other buildings, but I'd rather delay one of them and give our personnel the money and come back and see if we can fund that 6th, which was kind of an afterthought anyway. I looked at the numbers on Las Casas. I'm sorry to say, but Almaville outruns them all the time.
I didn't say that.
And, you know, it's just a fact. And I can't help that. You know, if we can't keep personnel, the buildings are not going to be very good to us. You know, so I'd rather cut one of them temporarily, put off, I'm not saying eliminate it, but cut it temporarily, put it off 6 months or a year down the road when we get that other money, and go ahead and take care of our people. If we don't do that. If we don't do that, if we do go forward with the State Farm building, which I've supported, I think it's a great option, then I think we have to look at ending fund balance or something else in order to get this out between now and the end of the year, because I think taking it into the next year is just not fair to people.
Well, and that being said, Commissioner, it's going to take 2 contractors. We found out the other night. I think we're prepared, in talking to Bart Klein and Associates, we're prepared to break ground in Las Casas. I shouldn't have said that. You just tried to take it away. In Rockvale, we're prepared to break ground probably the 2nd week of November, what we learned the other night. And it's going to take 2 contractors, probably Rock City and American Constructors, to move forward on that, and probably will be into next year's budget after next July building those 6 anyway. So I think we got enough time to be flexible over the course of the next few weeks to determine, and if we have to come back to ending fund balance, then so be it.
Okay.
I'll go along with what Commissioner Phillips said. Let's just go ahead. We've gotten a lot of information tonight. We've drug this out this long. I started this in June, so one more month. So I'm making a motion that we
just want to defer this?
Defer this until our October meeting.
I don't think we'll have enough time by the 14th, depending on, he's supposed to be here on the 8th. So I don't know if we can pivot that quickly. Depends on if we're negotiating. What if he comes back and says, I want another $5 million?
If we do, fine, but let's put this off until we get the information. I'll just put it that way. Let's defer this until we get the information on the State Farm building, okay, and then move forward.
Okay, that's fine.
And in the meantime, Sonia, can you get with Lisa and give us a breakdown on what it's going to take for all essentials? Be prepared to come back for a report.
So in order for me to do that, are you saying all full-time $2,000 and part-time $1,000? Or are you saying?
That's the direction, Mr. Chairman, the committee.
That was suggested.
Suggested, okay. So 2,000.
I think it's in agreement with the committee here that that's what they want to do, that we want to do.
We need a second on that motion.
Yeah, I've got you. I think we will. We'll just do that. Do we have a second? Got a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That way we've got it there. It's in the minutes and we know where we're going. That's what direction we got there. But I think like I said, I think it's pretty much in the direction of this committee right here where we're wanting to go with this. So it's better to have everything in the row, what to do with and how we go that direction. And you take the information that Ms. Stevenson has given us, and we'll take that. You be sure and go over it, go through that, and then we'll be ready to go over those, Sonia.
And one of the things, and I don't know if it could happen that quickly because I don't know what we're waiting on, but the longevity that you spoke of, the longevity checks go out like the second week of November. And so it would be nice if this was included in that, like, you know, for Christmas planning and those type of things. I don't know if you can do it that quickly, but if the body does decide to do it, that's when the other goes out.
That'd save a little money and put it all in one check, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Are you going to go through some, because one of the things I asked for last time, it was Commissioner P wanted to bring it back to committee. We're back in committee, and have you, is pay plan.
I got that. I'm going to talk about it. I think that's the other business. If that.
That's what this is.
That's what's on this right here.
Go forward. Okay.
You want to go through that, or do you want time to go over this?
I want to at least explain what they've got in front of them, and then
that way you that's can what I would like to have is an explanation of what we're looking at, and then I can take this home with me and study it, and we'll come back and discuss everything next time. Thank you.
It would be very helpful to me if after each of you study it, if you have thoughts or ideas. I really like to come prepared, so if I know what you're asking me for, I can make sure I'm trying to guess what I think you might want. But if you review it and you say, hey, I really like to know this, I can do that. I just need to know. So this first page, it says, I'm going to go from the beginning. There's a pay plan history that I gave to each of you. One of the things that was brought up is about kind of the history of how we got on the pay plan, how we got job descriptions, what we've done each year. And this sheet was created by Lisa Nolan. She keeps this so that she can keep track of what we do. The other parts, there were some things added as I went through my notes since I've been here. Obviously, I can't speak what happened before 2007. November of 2007. So anything 2008, 9 on, I would have had a knowledge of. And I added in some of the notes for the things that we did in the HR department since my being here, some of which are updates of job descriptions, adding new job descriptions, and those type things. We did do an extensive, for 3 or 4 years, having MTSU, a graduate class at MTSU from the business department going out and sitting with one-on-one of employees and to finish up some of what had been started in the earlier years. So this is really just for your knowledge. If you see that there are any things that may be stated in here not correctly, I would like to know, because I do want this to be an accurate reflection of what we've done. And so I know that Commissioner Gammon and I spoke. There was something, at least 2 things on here that he remembered, and we'll update those items to get those back so that y'all have an accurate reflection of this.
Let me say something. When we talked, I complimented you because you've worked very close, but you came in after some of these things. And this is where sometimes maybe we need to go back to the former mayor, former sheriff, and some other people. They were involved in this. And there was actually over 50 steps on the first one that Miss Allen, County Executive Mayor Allen, they had established at that time. And that, all I'm going to say is that pretty much got torn apart when the next HR, not the one that stayed 6 months, but the next one after that, just ripped it apart and dropped it, I think, to 14 or something. And that's whenever they made a sergeant a sergeant. If you were a warrant supervisor, then you're the same as a patrol sergeant on the street. So that's where that went, and it's not gotten any better since. I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, and to your point, I try really hard to make sure that I work with the sheriff's office, that I sit down about their needs and their wants and the things that were concerns. So it's been a work in progress since I've been here, but we have made several changes. But I just wanted y'all to have that just as a reference. So the next thing that you have is it says request for pay plans. So in the past, at the direction of the commission, we researched and polled the 3 larger counties to Rutherford County and the 3 smaller ones that weren't as small as the example I've got here tonight as Cannon County, but were smaller. So what we have polled in the past, and I did this time, is Knox County and Knoxville, Hamilton County and Chattanooga, Metro, Davidson, Nashville, because those would be the 3 larger, Williamson County and Franklin. While Williamson County isn't the next smaller one to us, they are in close proximity. We do lose employees to Williamson County, and they have a higher tax basis, so they do pay a little bit more. I check Franklin, Montgomery County, and Clarksville, and then another entity is Wilson County, because they also take several of our employees. Historically, I do not check Cannon County and Coffee County and Bedford County, those smaller ones. But when this was brought up about their pay range, that was very concerning to me, that someone this close to us and that small may be making more than our employees. For the last 3 years, we have lifted the pay table, but we haven't implemented the pay studies. So this list of who I reached out to, this was because this was for me. This was validation for me. I got kind of the feeling from some of the conversations that maybe I wasn't being forthcoming with the studies that we had received in the past. So you can call any of these people if you want, or I've got the entire stack of all the pay plans. You can see it yourself. But my integrity is very important to me, so I'm not going to be dishonest about something if I know it not to be true. The next thing you have is this Cannon County Sheriff's Office flyer that was going around. Several people got emails about it. It was brought up in the meeting, so I was very concerned about that. So did some studying, reached out to Cannon County, did multiple records requests before I could actually get the information. This is not accurate. What that is it is, we'll call it the hidden paycheck. It is the salary plus the cost of all the benefits that that employee has tied into it. But it's kind of misleading because it says starting pay $45,000. To most people, that would imply that's going to be my pay. That's not my pay plus benefits. So to tell you, for us, the next page behind that, I did a hidden paycheck for Rutherford County, and I did an entry-level patrol officer who is certified, which is what this flyer is reflecting. And if a step one entry-level patrol officer who is certified started with us and the benefits, their net pay would be $67,736. That's a significant difference. So to imply that Cannon County is making that much more than us, I can understand why they did it based on conversations, but that's when people are looking at salary information that they see on Indeed or the internet, you might have to research it a little bit more to see what all that includes. There's another flyer going around for, I can't remember if it's Shelbyville or Bedford County. They were not responsive to my multiple records request and would not provide the data. So I can't agree or dispute with what's out there for Bedford or Shelbyville. The next piece is I was asked to see what the cost was in the event that this body did not want me to do the salary surveys. I've done these multiple times, but if this body wishes to spend the money to do it, that's okay too. I work closely with Steve Thompson, who is with Thompson, Burris and Associates. They are in the organization who does a lot of salary surveys in Tennessee. I reached out to Steve and said, hey, this is what I'm looking at. What would you do one for us? I am currently assisting him with 3 salary surveys. And so he said, I have your information. I have the entities that I currently survey. And I could do the entire county, because if you're going to do it, you might as well do the entire county and get it all right, would be $22,675. We do get that cost reduction because he already has all the information. I would just have to supply how many positions, how many people in each position. The other company that I reached out to is Mercer. We already have a relationship with Mercer, with our insurance, and I reached out to them because they do compensation and classification. I sent them all of the number of positions we have, how many employees, how many is in each position, and asked them what they would charge to do just a pay study, not the full compensation and classification. And they said it would be a minimum of $132,000. So Burris will do the survey much like what I presented to you tonight. That's where I'm going with this. They will get all the survey data from all these entities, whomever you choose to do. They will do an average, and they will tell you the minimum, the maximum, and the midpoint. Then once that's done, they turn it over to HR to help put them in a pay plan. One of the things that was mentioned to me, probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, was that it would be nice if we could go back to public safety having their own pay table. I do think that would be a good idea if you did it only, if you didn't do it for your administrative staff. And at some point we'd have to figure out, if we had an accounts payable, just like we have an accounts payable in finance, to put those together, that would be fine. But those individuals who are unique, a patrol officer, a detention officer, a firefighter, those type things, a paramedic, to have them on their own separate, I think that would be, actually, it would be easier for me than it would be the one that we have now. So I do think that may be something that you would look at instead of having a complete compensation table that includes everyone. The analysis part of doing a salary survey, the process is going to be the same no matter whether we have 1 table or 2 tables. It's just how it's set up. Now, the numbers I give you are the raw data. this is not what the pay plan would say. We couldn't have, we've got 132 different classifications. We couldn't have 132 pay grades. So what happens is you stay within a certain percentage, whatever the margin that you stay within. And usually I stay within 3%. So the 3%, and that's a pretty low margin to stay within for variations in order to put people in a pay grade. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, when I talked to Steve, I asked him if he was doing, I knew that I was doing 3 for him right now, and I asked if he was doing any other salary surveys in Tennessee and who he might be doing them on. And he told me that he was doing several, but he gave me a list of the ones that were close to us. Murfreesboro, Lebanon, Chattanooga, Wilson, Franklin, Williamson, Smyrna, and wait a minute, is it Chattanooga? No, wait. The last one. Yes, Chattanooga. And I say Chattanooga, Chattanooga's already had theirs done. And so what is in this pay plan that this pay study that you have here is the salaries they're going to pay in 2022-23. And the reason I put those in there is because if I put their salaries that they're making today, July 1, it's going to change to the new ones, and so you're already backdated. Some of these individuals will have theirs done and are going to try to implement by the next fiscal year. And I have asked them if they will share their studies with us, because if they're going to implement it, what information we get out now will change as soon as everybody else's pay studies come out. And that's what happens. You do a pay study, and here we've got 7, 8, 9, 10 other people that are doing it around us. We boost ours up, and then they boost theirs up. I will say, though, based on the current salaries that are out there that we could find comparisons for, I did the columns of, they're green and dark orange, and it says more than or less than. So you have the average. That's what you would build your new table off of, the average column. The white column that says Rutherford is our employee titles, and I didn't do everybody in public safety. I just picked, I don't know, maybe 30 positions. And I said what they're currently making minimum, what they're currently making maximum. After I did the analysis all the way over, the orange shows the positions that are being paid less than the average of the people we surveyed. Those individuals, those positions, depending on how big a difference there is, would be adjusted. If it's $100 difference, that might not get adjusted. If it's $2,000 difference, that would something we would want to adjust and to make a change. So that's a brief description on what this is. The other thing is the reason it's got state of Tennessee is I think about our Tennessee Highway Patrol, and I think that was brought up. And I did get the state of Tennessee's salary information as far as their highway patrol as well. And so that's why that's included in this column. I also checked with Manchester and Coffee County, didn't have them on the table. They don't have a pay plan. And so, in fact, several of Wilson County does not have a pay plan, but that's why they're doing a study, is to create a plan. Cannon County doesn't have a pay plan. Woodbury doesn't have a pay plan. So there's several that don't have plans. They just determine what they're going to pay. I will say the ones that don't have a pay plan, Wilson County, and I know Sumner County, I used to do this. I can't speak if they do now, but Wilson County still does, because I've got them to send me every employee in those departments, their name, their title, and their pay. And what Wilson County does is they pay them all the same. If you make $19 an hour, they all make 19. So there's like 4 or 5 of them that make a variation. But like I said, anybody who wants to see what they sent me, I'll be happy to show that to you. But that's sometimes how they do those. So if there's, I don't know that, I think the thing that we would have to determine, whether it's me, whether it's Burris and Thompson, whether it's Mercer or whomever, I need to know who you want them to be compared, who you want the employees to be compared to. I mean, that's the number one thing. And so, who are we going to compare ourselves to? 2, how are we going to weight that? Are we going to say we value a county more than the city, or are we going to say they all weigh the same? If it's Rutherford County versus Murfreesboro? Are we going to say we're going to weight Rutherford County twice as heavy and City of Murfreesboro not? Are we going to say everybody's exactly the same? Because that's one of the questions. I asked Steve to give me a list of things that he would need. These are things that I typically consider as well. And let's see, who we're going to compare to, the weights, and then the time frame, those type of things. So these things take months to prepare. It's not something you can just say, oh, I can whip that out really quick. So you would need to know. I would need to know if it was going to be me or if it was going to be anybody else. They're going to need to know. Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for putting all this together. It looks like you've really done a great job in putting this together. It looks like what I'm seeing here in these columns is that on the majority of the classifications, we're behind, and we're behind fairly significantly on some of them. I think we need to study this. We may not need to spend the money. We may just need to figure out how we're going to pay for it. And that's a whole nother ball game. It gets back to Commissioner P's committee and talking with our finance director and how much, because I know in talking with our finance director in the past, we've got some things changing and things that are going to be due in the coming year. We didn't do a tax increase this past year, and I think it'll be hard to put a tax increase through in an election year, although really and truly, I don't really see, to me, if you can't vote for a tax increase to pay your employees right, then you probably, I'll just say this, you probably really shouldn't be a commissioner. I don't mind saying that, because you're putting your position before the employees of Rutherford County. If I run one more time, I'll be here 12 years. Some of these people are going to be here at 30 and 40. So they're the ones we should be looking out for. I'm not going to be here 40 years. So really and truly, I have to congratulate you for doing what you've done. And I think we need to start talking about in the coming month or two how we're going to pay for it, how we're going to do it. Because I think we need to do it. We need to do it soon. As we talked about the responses, the number of ambulance calls, the number of SO calls, they're increasing all the time. The demand, one of the things that I don't think people who haven't been in public safety understand is the stress on the employee. Virgil can understand this. It's the stress on the employee. The having to work that 50, 60, maybe 70-hour week. And if you don't have enough employees to distribute the workload, then that's what you wind up getting. You wind up getting, these people are out with COVID, FMLA. Somebody's got to fill in for that paramedic. Somebody's got to fill in for that patrol deputy. Somebody's got to fill in for that detention officer. And the time away from family is stress. Virgil, you were with me over in Ocoee. I just took my wife over there. It's been 25 years. She had never seen that location. All she knows is I was gone for weeks during that summer. That meant I was gone not only from my wife, I was gone from my children. And yeah, I went over there, I did my job, you did your job, and the event went okay. But, that's the thing. So thank you for putting this together. And I think we as a body of commissioners need to start looking at how we're going to do something about it. Thank you.
I did want to say something. There were a couple positions in here that were in the green. And I will tell you, one of the things that I look at too is turnover. And so I'm going to give you a position that's in the green that says we're paying comparable or paying a little bit more. and that's our communications officer. And I can tell you, that is a very stressful, high-stress job. They're hearing everything, trying to manage multiple desks, and even though there says that we're paying in line, I would look at the turnover, which is another thing that I consider when I'm looking at positions that are in line. So this one says we're behind, but these say we're in line. I'm looking at the turnover in that position to say, well, even though it says we're in line, we still can't keep people in that job. What can we do? So for like the communications officer, if I were to bring this forth to you, that would be something that I would include and say, I know we're in line, but, so that's one of the things that, you know, when you're looking, there's just so many factors to it when you're looking at it. And
couple of comments. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Gurley, and I think you've come to the same realization Commissioner Phillips and I had last time, is Sonia's very capable of doing a study for us. You know, we can decide to get somebody else, 22,000, hey, that's very reasonable. You know, that'd be a load off of you. I'm sure you'd kind of be happy
okay with
about
that.
But I'd advise any of you, if you go back a year ago, we went through budget and an extensive look at our pay scales. And when I say that, you've got one page here. What do we have?
probably 30, 40 pages, yeah.
Anyway, you know, every employee and a very comprehensive study, and she did an excellent job with that. That's where my confidence in her has come from. But a couple of quick questions that I have, and I agree with Commissioner Gurley again. You know, we're going to have to look at this in budget, see what it would cost us. You know, and I think recommendations from the departments, I mean, from our committees, not just this committee, but, you know, the other committees that are connected to, need to say, hey, what do we want to do to hang on to our employees or to enhance the pay? One thing I want to mention, and that little flyer from Cannon County kind of is the sticker. You know, I said, you know, we're losing most of our people to Murfreesboro City. Well, let's just make a resolution that anytime they make a pay raise, we match it. Well, yeah, we could do that, but is that apples to apples? And that's what I want to look at, because same thing with Cannon County. You know, they're saying, hey, we're going to pay you 48, and actually we're paying 67,000 starting out versus their 48. The same thing with Murfreesboro City. If I'm not mistaken, they don't get the retirement that our people do. Is that correct? Or
They have a matching. The employee chooses not to match, then they don't do it. But I will tell you that they are considering it. Going back to TCRS, they've been away from TCRS, I'm guessing maybe 20 years, 25. Somebody in the room would have to know that. I don't know that. I know they were at some point in time, but that's one of the things that they don't currently. They just do a matching.
The only reason I'm mentioning that is just like that flyer from Cannon County again. You know, there'll be stuff flying all over social media and stuff. You know, these pay this much more, but they need to look at the full compensation. You know, whether it's medical, health, you know, retirement, and it makes a huge difference. You know, those of us got a little more gray on our hair and appreciate it maybe a little bit more now, but you know, younger, you don't always see that. But that's something that we need to stress when we're looking at this. What is the compensation difference? And you did a good job there with the Cannon County one. I'd like to do the same things on these others that you've done. The only other question I've got is on your averages. And the average that you use, the median, was that with the ones that you've got on this sheet? All of them to total, or did you exclude any of them?
So like, if it says, like Wilson County, it says no pay plan, just payroll data, they're not included. They're just there as a reference so you could see. And the reason why is because they really don't have a beginning and an end. Some of them you'll see are the same number. So like, that's where I was saying. So it might be, I pay $35,000 for patrol. That's my beginning and my end. And so some of them are like that. And when it's like that, I don't include that because that's going to give you, even if they started out a little bit more, but they don't top out, that's going to overinflate one and deflate the other. So then it's going to mess up your averages. So those are on there for you to use as a reference just to say, what are they paying? Not necessarily to include. The Cannon County and the Woodbury is the same way. I mean, it's just there as a reference to say, what are they truly making? The average came from everything that has data in it except the ones that says they don't have a pay table. So it includes Knox, Knoxville, Hamilton, Chattanooga, Metro Davidson, Montgomery, Clarksville, Williamson County, Franklin, Lebanon, and state of Tennessee. You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just looking back over the spreadsheet of the history of, at least the history we could go back to, it reminds me of something that happened about a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago, when there were people complaining about the commissioners who voted to turn over our landfill to the private sector 30 years ago. And they're comparing what we did 30 years ago to what we may have done today, and there's no way to compare that. My response was, what we did 30 years ago I feel was appropriate for that time frame. Not today, but back then. And what we've done 20 years ago, 15 years ago, may not be appropriate for what we're doing right now with the pay scale, and we may need departments. Do you know what some of the other counties and or larger cities are doing? Do they have one or do they have multiple?
It varies, and I tried to determine that because just for the sake of this. So I'll just use, I thought at first that like Chattanooga had their own, but when they sent me the separate table for fire and police, and I compared it to their complete table, it had those same titles in it. So one of the things that I've done the last several years at the sheriff's request is to give them just their, what do my people need? So I break it out by his positions to give to him. I think that some of them do that. I would say the majority of them do that. But I think that it would be best if they had their own separate, like totally separate, like it's only their people with their work, with their ranges. Now, you may not have 42 pay grades when you do that. You'll have other pay grades. The only thing that makes this a little bit hard when I say this, and I may have to put it in the context, is we have an evaluation system to put people on the table. I don't think this is on that list, but one of the things, as Commissioner Gammon and I were speaking, before I came, they didn't do experience credit. And I just did not think that was fair, that if somebody worked for the county and came back, didn't receive either the time that they spent with us before or relevant experience that they had somewhere else. Say somebody from, the city of Murfreesboro Police wanted to come to the sheriff's office and they had been a law enforcement agent for 10 years. We were not recognizing that. So experience credit was one of the things that I introduced, I don't remember what day, sometime 2009, 10-ish. And we did that. Then the next thing that we did after that was to recognize our military. So if somebody came into our law enforcement corrections facilities and they had prior military experience, they get experience credit for that as well. So there's some things that we've done like that. But the way that I classify to put people on the plan, Lisa Nolan and I spent several Saturdays coming up with what's fair, checking it to make sure it didn't take somebody. We have a glitch every now and again where in the past, we check it now, but in the past, we implemented a table and like somebody was only going to get $100 to be a corporal from being a patrol officer. Well, there's no incentive to take on additional responsibilities for $100 a year. So we check that to make sure. There has to be a division. Even though these are averages, if a patrol officer makes, say we're going to put a patrol officer at 49,000, the corporal has to be, there has to be enough separation between the patrol officer and the corporal in order for them to want to assume those responsibilities. So even if the survey, so you start out at your least position and go up to your highest, right? So you say, so that you have a division in to encourage people to want to be a sergeant or a lieutenant or a captain or whatever. So there's just, I wouldn't want to mess up that evaluation system because I would have to go back and renumber, but it's totally doable. I mean, I could do it with enough time. Now, if you're asking me to have this done by December, I am down 2 employees in my office, and that would probably cause me to have a heart attack, I'll just be honest with you. But I would try my darndest to get it to you. I did check because there was some questions about it's the fairest. Anybody who's seen it understands now why we do it that way. The Department of Labor comes into HR and says, how did you determine how Sonia's on the pay table? I can show it. So everybody's done exactly the same. I went to the state of Tennessee because they're a large employer and said, how do you do yours? And when I took my sheet and they pulled out theirs, we laughed. It was almost identical. They do the same thing we do. One of the things I would recommend is us getting rid of the step process, okay? That's very confusing to people. I think we have to have a structure on the minimum and the maximum, but the step process is where it gets confusing because people will say, well, I've been in law enforcement for 20 years and I'm a captain and I'm only at step 12. Well, you haven't been a captain for 20 years because it's the time in that position. That's confusing, so if we were going to implement something, that would be one of the things I would take away, would want to recommend that we do different, not take away, but do differently. Because it is confusing to people. They think the step designates their years of service. Well, it's not. It's just the step that you're measured by, so.
I think what I'm hearing is that Sonia can probably do it, but it might also be beneficial so we can satisfy others' thought process that we go to the outside. Would the 22,000 or whatever it ends up being include looking at the different departments or different sectors like public safety and
We'll look at everything. We'll look at them all.
they could separate those out from our current pay plan?
No, they would send that raw data back to me to put out on a separate pay plan. We can pay extra. Let me rephrase that. The $22,700, they would give you a recommendation for a pay plan. Not necessarily that that's the one that you want to do. You may say, well, I like this piece, but I don't like that piece. He will do that, yes, in the $22,000. One of the things that I would recommend, and he did not put it in this analysis, that if you decided to go out, I would ask them also at the same time, since they're doing it, to do the benefit study. What are people, doing for pension, medical insurance, those type of things, so that you have the whole picture. You're not just doing a piece of the compensation package.
I'm not sure how it works in government versus the private sector, but in the private sector, let's say a manufacturing plant, and you started off with a pay scale that had 3 different classifications. Right. You started off with a 20-25% spread between, but you gave the same amount of an increase over the time. All of a sudden, that 20% became 5%. And your skilled laborers, nobody wanted them because of the responsibility that they carried, simply because the lower classifications were out making almost as much money. We need to be real careful when we do that, and I heard you loud and clear when you said about that a minute ago. Don't know if we need to make a recommendation or something tonight, but this commission would be leaning toward going with that firm that we already have a relationship with and already has some information. So it would be my recommendation. I don't know if we need to do a Mayor, but I don't know if it's a recommendation, but if you're comfortable with that, this commissioner's feel comfortable. That would be, I'll just put it in the form of a motion that we go to the outside, and I can't remember their names.
Burris Thompson and Associates.
That firm, and contract with them to, that'd be a motion.
Yeah, I'll second it, but I've got a question. Is that the one that said they do it for 22? Is that's the actual data coming to you, or is that the recommendation also?
Well, what they will do, I'll read the exact language, that way you'll know it and I won't paraphrase it. How about that? So what this will get you, it's the preliminary fact finding. So what that is me telling them who you want them to survey, because they're not going to pick. You're going to have to tell them, like, who do you want them to survey? If you want it weighted, county versus city. If you have a variance, so let's say somebody is 1% underpaid. Do you adjust their pay because they're 1% versus the person who's 10%? Or, you know, what the variance is. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that they will know. And then the next part is the market data, which is where they pull everybody, all this that I use to compile that, they'll pull all this data, okay? And that's what they will use in their comparison, and that will be who, you know, you select. Review the job pay grade assignments. That's currently what we have in place now. He already knows that because we help him with surveys all the time. So all he said he would need from me is how many people are in each classification and how many of them are full-time and how many are part-time. Then he would revise or adjust the current pay structure, so that would put them in line with where they would go in that structure, and recommend a pay increase if it was needed, because it's going to cause a pay increase. The next part, that's phase 1, which would cost you approximately $15,000. Phase 2 would be to develop the methodology and determine employee pay adjustments. So if you said, we can't afford the whole thing, how do you determine what you're going to implement? Which is, you know, what I usually say, what percentage is behind is where you want your cutoff. And so that's where they would take the percentages to say, okay, we want everybody up to where they're supposed to be. That's fine, easy peasy, he goes on and does that. But if you say, well, we can't afford that because it's going to cost whatever, $3 million, then what is your adjustment cycle? So that's what you get in that price. If you added in the benefits, I don't know that it would cost a whole lot more, but I would recommend that. They just did a big benefits survey last year, so he probably still has the data.
I was going to say it'd be worthless to me if we didn't have, you know, equivalent benefits in there. I mean, it just like this flyer with Camden County, and go back to that again. You know, I don't need data like that. I need to know. So that's still in the 22?
No, that would be extra.
Be another 18?
No, it probably, I don't know how much more it'd be. I'll ask him.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is, this is going through budget, and it'll have to go through the budget process of this coming year. It's going to be next June before we can actually make a change to this. Okay, if that's the case, and I second this so we can start talking about it. Case, I mean, I told you a while ago, I have all the confidence in the world in your ability to do this, but I don't want to, the reason I second it, I don't want to overload you either, and you're short employees.
Commissioner P. and Commissioner Phillips, I have another suggestion. Instead of, we see right here in the data that we've presented tonight that 90 to 95% of our positions, public safety positions, are underpaid. If you look at the averages and look at you go down through that column, the orange column, you'll see that minus, 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 minus. So what we need is put together how we're going to address that. Now, Sonia has stated that due to personnel, she may not be fully staffed to do that. But another option is to pay some temp help. As she develops this along, to pay some temp help. And we can buy a lot of temp help, administrative temp help, for $20-something thousand or more, because you're saying for some of the additional stuff it's going to be needed. So for, let's just say the whole thing is $27,000, $28,000, we can pay a lot of temp help for that, can we not?
Well, I do have the positions posted, so I would be getting those filled. To say that I would never get those filled would not be a true statement. And I wouldn't have to pay temp help. I would have somebody that would be training.
But I mean, we could pay temp help instead of paying $20-something thousand out to somebody. We could pay temp help and accomplish the same thing. When we see, I don't know that since you put this together that there's a whole lot more that he's or she's going to put together.
Well,
other than to put it into a plan.
I would not trust a temp person with our pay plan. I would want to do it if I'm going to have to present it, not have to. If I'm going to get to present it, I want to make sure that I know what went into it. So projects of this nature that are big and means this much to our employees, I don't want to, you know, farm that out. And to bring a temp into my office, the training that it takes to set them up on the computer systems and everything else, you know, like I said, I've got the positions posted. We will be up and running. So I can do it if you want. I'm not trying to shun my jobs, but I can also, whichever way you choose.
We have a motion and a second here.
Let me draw my motion and make another one, make another suggestion.
I'll withdraw the second.
Okay.
And that would be, Sonia, for you to get together with the company that we've talked about and add the additional information that we wanted, which is the benefits and those types of things, and then come back with to us next month with the cost.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We defer that to next month also.
Okay.
That's okay with you? If
yes, sir.
Right.
I'm thinking that the firm already has a lot of information, even some that we don't have right now. So the recommendations that they can come back with would be something what other cities are doing.
The other thing that kind of jumping up at me is if we're going to look at a separate pay structure for Sheriff's Department or fire, EMS, or whatever we're talking about when we say public safety. We haven't declared who's public safety, by the way. But anyway, if that's going to be the case, I want some information on that and what that would look like.
Okay. I think we've made that decision.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your work.
Absolutely. Second what Commissioner Gurley said about all the work that you've done. So I ask you for something, you do it. Proud of you. Thank you.
I have to tell you, you saw this one paper. I think last Friday I saw paper like this that went into this one paper. We could have taken that paper right there and burned it last Friday, and we could have had your ham breakfast cooked with what all the papers you had from there. Anything else to come forward? Not have a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.